Welcome back to the podcast with your host, Samantha.
And I'm Alexa. We're here to light up your life.
Today's guest is someone who wrote the playbook on discipline, confidence, and mental toughness. Dre Baldwin is the CEO and founder of Work on Your Game, a powerhouse platform helping six-figure entrepreneurs build the systems and structures to scale to seven figures. He's delivered 4 TEDx talks, authored 41 books, and had a 9-year pro basketball career that took him around the globe to 8 countries. Whether on the court or in the boardroom, Dre's core philosophy stays the same. Show up, do the work, and demand greatness from yourself. Get ready because today we're diving deep into what really means to work on your game in business, life, and mindset.
Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you.
Samantha and Alexa, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on. Hopefully, I can live up to that introduction.
Yes, that was very impressive. All right. So jumping in, you say that discipline is the foundation of everything. How did your time as a pro athlete shape your definition of discipline?
Well, discipline is really important at the professional level of anything, sports or any other profession, simply because you're competing against other people who have a similar skill level and or talent level. They also have access to resources. They have knowledge. They've been in the game just like you have. And if you're going to outcompete them, you have to have some other edge rather than just, I'm just better than you. Now, at the pro level, of course, you have your LeBron Jameses and Kobe Bryants who just seem to be better than everyone else. But most professionals are not that much better than other professionals, at least on a basic skill level. So what separates them, Samantha and Alexa, how do you show up on a consistent basis when it comes to your training, your preparation, and then that actually leaks into your performance? So a way I analogize it for athletes is, let's say you take someone like, I don't know how much you two follow sports, but you know Kobe Bryant, right? You heard of him. Okay. So you take somebody like Kobe Bryant. What makes him better than some player at the end of the bench who, if you go to the game, you don't know who they are? The difference is not that Kobe is just so much more talented than that guy, because both of these guys are in the top 1% in the world at their job. It's that Kobe has a mentality. It starts with the mindset of, I want to be at this level. So because of that mindset, they just decide, I'm going to do these things that can get me to perform at this certain level. And then he consistently does it. So then when it's time to perform, the games that everybody sees, all the work that was done quietly shows itself consistently over and over again over the course of however many years he played, 20 years. Then everybody says, wow, Kobe Bryant's such a great player. And they assume that it's talent because that's the easiest explanation. But it's not talent. Talent got him in the room, but talent does not keep you in the room at the professional level. Discipline keeps you in the room, and discipline will elevate you over everyone else, simply because everyone knows what discipline is, Alexa, but a lot of people don't want to be disciplined because it's not easy.
You're right. Discipline is so hard, and it's all of those unseen hours that people are working and showing up for themselves that no one sees that actually makes them very successful. If there's anyone listening to this who's struggling with consistency or they need to start to build more discipline in their daily life, what would you say to them?
First thing, you got to understand where discipline comes from. And a lot of people get that wrong. And if you have that wrong, it doesn't matter what you do because you're operating off the wrong formula. It's kind of like I once heard Tony Robbins say, if you're trying to see a sunset, but you keep running to the east, you're probably not going to see the sunset. You're looking in the wrong directions, no matter how fast you run. So discipline is a byproduct of structure. And if you think about it, anywhere in any of our lives where we execute it with consistent discipline is because we were following a structure. So the example that I give, a real simple one, Samantha, is let's say when you were in second grade, we all went to second grade, right? Okay. So in second grade, let's say one day you're sitting in class and a substitute teacher walks in the room. What do all the kids, they all start looking at each other. What are we all thinking? This is an open question. I'm actually asking.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a teacher, so we thought that we could pretty much do anything. There was no structure, no routine. We could behave and lash out and whatever we wanted.
Exactly. It's going to be a zoo, right? So the classroom turns into a zoo that day because the teacher's not there. And then the very next day, when the teacher is back from their sickness and the regular teacher walks in the room, those same kids who were real badasses the day before and destroyed the room, when the regular teacher walks back in, all of a sudden they're all sitting at the desk with their hands folded and being good little boys and girls. What's the difference between yesterday and today? The difference is not the kids all of a sudden became bad kids and then became good kids just because of who walked in the room. The difference is when the teacher, who I guess let's say you, Samantha, you represented structure. When the structure is removed, you naturally get chaos and disorder. And that's not even a theory. That's a scientific reality is called entropy. And that's a law of science that when you remove standards and you remove structure, you naturally get chaos and disorder. And again, example, let's say you don't cut the grass outside of your house for a month. What happens to the grass? It naturally becomes disorderly. But if you keep the structure in place, so you have some landscapers or you have a lawnmower and you cut it every week, then it continues to look nice. But if you don't keep that structure up, any type of structure or system, process, parameter, anything like that, if you don't have that, the natural response is disorder and chaos. It happens by itself. You don't have to try.
Absolutely. That is so true. And I remember seeing an interview with Cristiano Ronaldo, who's an amazing soccer player, right? And an absolute beast in his industry. I remember him as having a response to one of the interviewers as saying, even if I gave you the blueprint for what I do every day, you would still not do it. Everybody wants to be Cristiano Ronaldo, but it just takes so much discipline and that structure that you just talked about, right? So I'm really curious, what is it that you do in your day to day? What are some of the routines and some of the things that you practice to keep structure and discipline?
Well, I'll tell you one off the top. I saw you all posted on Instagram this morning. Is you posted that unlisted video that I sent you to about being on this show. And that, when I saw it, I said, "Man, they're going to give away my secret. Everybody's going to start doing it, but they probably won't because people are too lazy. All right, people are too lazy to do the little things that will separate you from everyone else." Your question was, "What are the things that I do in my day?"
Mhm.
So I am a very process driven, routine driven person. Some people would even call me a robotic in some ways. And I had someone once tell me, "Dre, you're easy to assassinate because if someone wanted to kill you, you know exactly where you are at all times, every day, at the exact same places, right to the schedule." So I have a morning routine that you probably heard people talk about this. I wake up usually about 3:30 to 3:45 in the morning. And first thing I'm doing is I'm doing yoga, I'm drinking water, my meditation. Then I'm working out. So I'm either at the gym or I'm outside running. And then the shower, shave, get dressed, etc. And I'm starting my work stuff usually in the 7 o'clock hour. And then the day, the actual day between, let's say, 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. is whatever happens to be on the schedule that day. So I may be doing a sales call, maybe doing coaching calls, I may be talking to you two. There's anything I could be doing. I could be doing a speaking gig. Maybe I'm doing some sales funnels work. Maybe I'm writing emails. A lot of things I could be doing between that 8 and 5 time period, but we put everything on the schedule, which is the simplest structure that any human being listening to this can use, especially entrepreneurs out there, is that we tend to fly by the seat of our pants a lot. That if you simply just start using your calendar and put things on the calendar, here's what I'm doing from 10 to 10:30. Here's what I'm doing from 11 to 12:30. Literally put it on the calendar and follow your own schedule. That will structure a lot of people's lives and step up our discipline and also step up our efficiency when it comes to our time and energy. So that's the biggest thing for me is just putting everything on the calendar so I know where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, that is so effective. I like to create my schedule the night before so I wake up and I know exactly what I'm doing. But even before you created this resilience and this discipline within your routine, was there a day or a moment that you had that you were just maybe feeling so out of alignment that pushed you into saying, okay, I need to step up my game. I need to become the man who I truly want to become? Was there a breaking point for you that completely changed and altered the trajectory of your life?
I don't know if I would be that dramatic and say the trajectory of my life, but I will say that I've had many days like that where I just don't like the way this process is going. I don't think I was efficient enough today. I feel like I took too much time doing this thing and not enough time doing that thing. Or I feel like I'm kind of running really fast, but it's almost like a treadmill. I'm tired at the end of the day, but I'm not really making any measurable progress. And one time in particular, I can think about that was probably around 2016. So I stopped playing basketball in 2015, went into full-time entrepreneurship. And in 2016, I kind of knew the structure of what I wanted to do, which is I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to make all this content and I'm going to have the show and I'm going to sell my courses, et cetera, et cetera. And I was doing it every day. And at the end of the day, I was tired because I was spending all day sitting in front of a computer working, but I didn't feel like I was going anywhere. I was running really fast just to stay in the same spot. So I knew I needed to get more structured and more organized in terms of what I was doing and where that effort was going, because hard work is an element of success. But what I tell people often, Samantha and Alexa, is that hard work is an element of success the same way that salt, pepper, and oregano are elements of a sandwich. Yes, they make it better, but that's not the whole sandwich. If that's all you have, you're still going to be hungry. So it's what are you working hard on and where is that hard work supposed to be taking you? So it's hard work, yes, but hard work again. What vehicle are you in? Are you driving in? Are you riding in a high speed train? You in a Tesla, or are you in the Fred Flintstone? You work hard in all three.
Yeah.
Which one is going to get you where you want to go, and how fast does it take you? How fast does it get you there?
Yeah, it's definitely not the Fred Flintstone vehicle.
And I'm absolutely amazed that we're not talking about the time that you're waking up. So, is there a reason for waking up that early? At 3:30 seems like middle of the night for me.
Oh, it is the middle of the night. And yes, there's a reason. So that would go back to we had to go back to 2006. So at this time I was in Philadelphia. That's where I'm actually from. And I was working at a gym. I had started playing pro ball. I had played a couple places, came home, hadn't made enough money to retire yet. So I had a job. So I'm working at this gym called Philadelphia Sports Clubs, and I had to be there at 8 o'clock every day. Now, good thing about working at a gym for me is that I still needed access to a facility so I could practice. And because I figured I'm going back into pro sports, which I did. But at that time, I'm not, but I wanted to stay in shape. Good thing is the gym had a basketball court, but not the one I worked at. So I worked at a location that was in downtown Philadelphia, 20 minutes from where I lived. The gym to the same company, but it wasn't the one I worked at. The one that had a basketball gym was 40 minutes in the opposite direction. So all I did was reverse engineer the whole process. Okay, so if I need to be at work at 8 a.m., that means I need to leave that other gym that I can use for free. I got to leave it an hour before work. So I had to be walking down that gym at 7 o'clock, and I had to be dressed and ready for work. So for me to be out of there at 7 o'clock, I had to get off the basketball court that I was going to use by 6:45. That gives me 15 minutes to shower and get dressed. Get off the court at 6:45. The gym opens at 5:30. I need to be there when they open the doors in the morning so I can practice for an hour, finish my workout, bring my work clothes with me, shower, change, get in the car, drive to work, be there by 8 o'clock. Now, for me to get to that gym by 5:30 in the morning, mind you, it was 40 minutes away from where I lived. I had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning so that I can get in my car at 4:45, 4:50 to arrive at the gym at 5:30. So I just reverse engineered the whole thing. And that's how I started waking up at 4 in the morning. Now, what happened is once I started doing that, I realized actually I like this. I like waking up early in the morning because it kind of it made me feel like I had an edge. I didn't like waking up and everybody's already awake. I don't like waking up and it's light outside. It's just not my thing. And I just kept it up. And over the years, I just stuck to it, waking up early. And these days, as a father, if you have kids, you know that getting up early is kind of a hack to actually have some time to yourself. Now, it's a little bit different for the woman. If you're a mother, then you may not be able to do it. You need as much sleep as you can get. But for me, I try to get up as early as I can and get some things in during the day so that by the time everyone else wakes up, I've already gotten some things done for myself.
Yeah, that's such a great tip for our audience, reverse engineering, what you want to do and then setting up your schedule to make it happen. This is something that's really impressive to me that you spoke on the TEDx stage 4 times and you've built a global brand. So, what's your personal definition of confidence, one, and then how do you teach others to develop it?
Well, I tend to look at things as really logically and sometimes annoyingly literally. So, my definition of confidence comes straight out the dictionary. And it says confidence is your belief in your ability to do something. So, where that comes from, going back to what we talked about earlier with discipline, confidence is a byproduct of discipline. And discipline comes from structure. So, if you have the right structure, you follow the disciplines, then that leads into confidence because if you're a basketball player, you get to the free throw line in the game. Why are you confident you can make the shot? It's because you practiced. So the discipline is the practice. So that's where that's how I look at confidence. So the issue a lot of people have with confidence is that they are inaccurate. They use an inaccurate formula when it comes to where it comes from. It's the same thing with discipline as with confidence, is that people think it comes from one place, it actually comes from another place. A lot of people think discipline comes from willpower or motivation. It's not true. And a lot of people think confidence comes from something like faking it until you make it, which sounds good in some ways, but is actually not true either. The reason why is because the subconscious mind takes everything that you tell it literally. So if you tell the subconscious mind just through your thoughts that you are faking something, the subconscious mind understands that eventually the faking must end. It's like acting. So you remember the story of Cinderella. She puts on this beautiful ball gown and a glass slipper, but she was warned at 12 o'clock that beautiful ball gown turns back into rags. And the subconscious mind looks at it the same way. If you tell yourself that you're faking something, the subconscious mind knows, okay, eventually this faking has to end. So even though you may be great during the faking period, eventually you got to stop faking. So instead, what you want to do is you want to become it instead of faking it. So I'll give you an example. So we'll stick at the sports. We'll use Ronaldo, who you mentioned, Alexis. So let's say a kid plays soccer and he wants to play really well, but he doesn't feel like he's very good. I'm not going to tell him to try to be Ronaldo, because you probably can't do that. But what he can do, I would ask him, okay, if you were about to go into the game and you had the energy and the mentality of your favorite player, whoever that may be, let's say Ronaldo, how would he walk onto the pitch? How would he put on his uniform? How would he feel when he walks out there and he sees the opponent? How does he feel when he's going through warm-ups and getting ready for the game? What is his mentality around the performance that he's about to have? So you can embody another person's energy while still being yourself. Then that player goes out on the field and they have a game and hopefully they play very well and they feel better about how they perform. Now you don't need to borrow from Ronaldo anymore. You can use yourself as an example because you just did it. So all you do is create a little sample size of yourself, so to speak. And you can do this in basketball. You can pretend to be Steph Curry. You can do it in speaking. You can pretend to be your favorite speaker, whoever it happens to be. Borrow their approach, their energy, their aura, do it your version of it. Now that you've done it, now you can use yourself as an example. And now you're no longer faking it. All you're doing is using your own example of what you already done and applying it to your own life.
I love that. So, what advice would you have for someone who feels like they're invisible or they're not valued in their current business or career?
Wow. Well, it depends. There's a lot of things I would ask. If I was talking to a person, I'd ask them a bunch of follow up questions. But let's just say, in general, if a person feels like they're not valued in their career, then I'm assuming that they would prefer to be valued because there are people who are not valuing their career and they're okay with it. But assuming that they want to be valued, I would ask a few questions like number one, do you want to create value where you are? Is it the company you're at? Is it your coworkers and bosses right now who are not valuing you? Is it the industry? Or do you feel like your skill set is not being used in the right place? So I would ask these clarifying questions to find out what's the actual issue. In other words, in the sales world, we call it isolating the objection. So let's find out what really the problem is here that you really have an issue with, because it might not even be any of those things. In my experience as a coach, I find Alexa, when people throw a challenge at me, that often the real problem is not even the thing that they said. It's something deeper than that. But I would ask until I find out. And then from there, we would do the same thing I told you about waking up at 3:30 in the morning. We would deconstruct. Where are you actually trying to get? Where are you at right now? And how do we get from here to there? Do we need to make a wholesale change to the process? Maybe you're in the wrong industry. Maybe you're in the wrong job. Or do we need to make some tweaks? Maybe you're in the right place and you're the right person, but the way that you are showing yourself to the marketplace, meaning your coworkers, your employers, the industry, maybe the way you're showing yourself, you're just giving off the wrong impression, therefore you're getting the wrong response. So I would figure out what exactly is the real issue, and then we figure out from there, do we need to make small changes or wholesale changes?
I love how you just deconstructed that. And I'm really curious to know if there's a moment in your life or your career where your mental toughness was truly tested.
Yes, absolutely. A whole lot of moments.
Hmm.
So let me pick one. So a lot of times when I was playing professionally, for anybody who's never doesn't know much about the basketball world overseas, a lot of times as an American, you will be the only American player on the team. And sometimes you're the only English speaking person on the team. So I remember I was on a team in Montenegro and most of my teammates did not speak English. We all spoke the basketball language so we could communicate on the court, but most of them didn't speak English. So I'll be sitting there at dinner with my teammates and they're all talking about something and I can't even participate in the conversation. And I have one teammate who could speak English. So he was like the translator. So they talked for 20 minutes and he'd tell me like 2 minutes of what got said. So that was kind of how it was, and the coach didn't speak English. So players would have to translate to me what the coach was saying, which in sports is actually a good thing because now you can pretend you didn't hear what the coach said and you can do what you want to do. But there were many times in that situation where I didn't like how much playing time I was getting. I didn't think I was getting the ball enough. The team's not winning and I'm not even getting a chance to impact the game. And I would start to feel a little bit pissed off about that. But at the same time, Samantha, I would remind myself, okay, well, who am I going to complain to? This is before social media was super big. Who am I going to complain to about the situation? Even if there was social media, most of my friends, my family members, my college teammates, they're in America working jobs that are nowhere near as glamorous as mine seemed. To me, to them, I'm living a movie. I'm traveling the world, literally playing a sport for a living and getting paid for. Who am I going to complain to about my job compared to what their job is? And I would remind myself of that often, many times when I was playing professionally, because even though from the outside looking in, it looks like a glamorous job, every job is a job. And when I say a job, what I mean by that is there is something in every profession, every industry, no matter what it is, that isn't usually shown in bright lights. Is not the stuff you see on TV, but it's the hard work that goes into it that makes it a job. And what separates the pros from the amateurs is how well you can deal with that part. And that's really what mental toughness is all about. So there were many times as a player that I had to have that conversation with myself. And the good thing is, because of the way I kind of program myself mentally, those times where I was feeling kind of bad about the situation never lasted more than about 2 minutes before I reminded myself, like, do you know where you're at right now and what you're doing for a living? What are you complaining about? So I would just kind of slap myself in the face, so to speak.
I love that. I think it's so important to be grateful for what you have. Find that very true for myself in a lot of situations as well, where I think we had a conversation just a few days ago about this, and we're living the dream, right? We're complaining about something, but we've manifested the life that we're living now. And if there's things in that life that you currently don't like, that's a reflection of something that you wanted in the past and you currently have it. It's important to be grateful for it, celebrate the milestones that you have achieved. And then if you are changing and developing and evolving, and there's new things on the horizon now that you want, you just have to grind and go out there and get it, right? So it's so important to be grateful though as the bottom line, and just be happy where you are and celebrate all the milestones. I'm curious what your recommendation for someone who's struggling would be to build that mental resilience.
Number one, stay there. This is the number one thing when you're in a tough situation is you have to stay in a tough situation. And I tell when people ask me about mental toughness, they'll ask something like, how do you build resilience? How do you build mental toughness? Well, first way to build mental toughness, Alexis, is you got to be in a tough situation. If nothing's ever tough, you can't be mentally tough. It's not possible. So you have to be in places where things actually are tough. And then you have to stay there when things are not quite working the way you want them to work. And you can't just quit every single time something's not going the way you want it to go. And that doesn't mean that you stay in everything. There's a time when you can strategically and smartly walk away from something. For example, I played baseball before I started playing basketball. Had I had this mentality of stay in something, I wouldn't become a basketball player. Baseball wasn't the right vehicle for me. But at the same time, when things are not working out, you can't do that every single time. So that's number one, is if it's tough, stay there. Number two, if you would like to build toughness just on your own volition, let's say without actually being in a tough situation yet, is that you can choose to get into a tough situation. This is the reason why, Alexa, people do things like join CrossFit classes. I don't know if either of you ever did CrossFit or you see a CrossFit class. I've never done it, but I see it. And it's a lot of repetitions. There's a lot of reps in CrossFit. And I think the people who go to CrossFit know that it's going to kick their ass when they go, but they go anyway. All right, knowing that that's what it's going to be. Or people who sign up to run a marathon, but they've never even walked around the block before. Or these things that people voluntarily get involved in, knowing that it's going to be hard, but they do it anyway. This is a form of stress, but it's a good form of stress. So most people, when they hear stress, we're thinking of distress. That's the negative kind of stress that makes you feel like you want to curl up in a ball and lay in bed and you're tired, even though you slept 10 hours. That's distress. That's the kind of stress that destroys you. There's another type of stress called eustress. It's EUSTRESS, is a real word. And that type of stress is what we call the growth type of stress, or if you know, ever talk to anyone in the biohacking community, they call it hormetic stress. And this is the positive kind of stress. This is the kind of stress that you voluntarily involve yourself in, knowing that it's going to be hard, but you do it because you believe it's going to make you better in the long run. So this is, again, signing up for CrossFit or hiring a personal trainer when you already know your way around the gym. You know it's going to be difficult. You know you're going to get pushed. You know there's going to be times you feel like quitting, but you do it anyway because it's going to make you better. So this is the voluntary way you can build mental toughness before something in life tough happens to you. Because in this way, you control the uncomfortable situation rather than having the uncomfortable situation thrust upon you, which often is very, not only uncomfortable, but often very inconvenient for us when it just interrupts us. But if we can choose it on our own, now we can build up the toughness on our own schedule so that when something tough happens, and if you're an ambitious person, it's inevitable something tough is going to happen. You're already conditioned and prepared for it.
Yeah. I really want to dive into that more and unpack it. So, when someone is dealing with a mental tough situation, and a lot of us in today's society want to mask things, right? People are scrolling, people are going out to dinner, people are drinking, people are using narcotics to try to get them away from really sitting with their feelings and feeling it, because that's the only way you can heal. That's the only way you can move past that. So, what would your advice be for someone who's going through that really tough situation? What would you do in that moment?
In the moment of going through a tough situation is remind themselves of what you just said. And what we're talking about here is that staying in the tough situation is what makes you tough. What makes you tough is not that you necessarily thrive in a challenging situation. What makes somebody tough is that, it's kind of using a fighting analogy, is that if you're still standing at the end of the round. It's not even necessarily that you have to win or you have to knock your opponent out, but can you last 3 minutes without being on your back? If you last through it, then you become tougher just because you dealt with it. Then the next time around, maybe you land a couple punches. The next time around, maybe you knock your opponent out. But you have to stay in there. And it's the people who never want to get in the ring in the first place, or they start running away as soon as it gets tough. Those are the ones who never get to build the toughness. So the biggest thing is just the perseverance, the stick to itiveness, the dealing with the grind. And the whole concept, what we're talking about here, Samantha, is what I call the third day. And it's all about how do you stick to something even when you realize that it's not one big party or one big celebration the way it felt like at the beginning or the way it proverbially looked like in the brochure. Because we all know that real life tends to differ from the lab tests, right? It sounds good when we're thinking about doing it, but then when you start doing it, you're like, oh, I thought this podcast thing was going to be easy until I started actually doing podcasts, until we start actually booking guests, until we start having to manage a calendar and schedule and upload the audio and get the files right. Then you realize, oh, okay, this is not as easy as it looks. But as long as you stick through that time when it is not, when you find out it wasn't as easy as you thought it would be, that's what puts you in that other group, that other level of people who have gone through the tough part. And now you know you can deal with it. And it often transfers over to other aspects of life because it's a mindset thing, not necessarily a skill set thing.
Yeah, and I think it's one thing also to try to persevere during a tough situation, overcome some obstacles, and a lot of that we don't have control over, right? So certain situations we're placed in, and you really have no choice. You have to go ahead and make it through, and there's certain challenges that we all have and traumas that we all have to overcome. But what do you think stop people from taking initiative and changing their life around?
What stops people from taking initiative?
Mhm.
Well, most human beings are lazy. I mean, in simple terms, I tell people, Alexa, three simple truths about human beings that if people really think about it, they'll realize it's true, even though not everybody will say it out loud. Most people don't think, they don't read, and they're lazy. And if you just leave people to their own devices, they won't do any of those three things. Now, they'll wait for someone else to tell them what to think. They will not verify anything that they're told. That's required by reading. They are lazy. So they just allow things to happen. And this is why I talked about entropy earlier. Most people in life is another one that this one's even a little bit more harsh. The fewer people will say. I tell people that if you haven't been to your high school reunion or you haven't seen any of your high school classmates in a long time, don't worry because the only thing that happened to them is they got older, fatter, and uglier. Everything else about them is still the same. They haven't really changed. And I say it, and people laugh when I say it, but if you really think about it, this is really the way most people live. Time goes on, they get worse. Scientifically, they get worse because they're not trying to get better. And we know the saying: if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not building, you're destroying. There is no neutral for a human being in the world. So to answer your question, Alexa, why do people not take initiative? If you just look at the term, take initiative. The reason people don't take initiative is because many people are waiting for it to be handed to them, but initiative is never handed out. The same way the lead, they say take the lead. Leadership is taken, is not given. So if you don't take initiative and do something to get leadership, you'll never get it. Leadership is not handed out. You have to go do something to get it. And most people, if they are not forced to do something, they do nothing. And again, this is the reason why most people just get worse naturally. So the reason a lot of people don't take initiative is not because they're not aware of the concept. Some people are unaware, but a lot of people are going to hear me say this right here, and they still may not take initiative because it requires you breaking the inertia of what you've been doing up to this point. And inertia is just I'm sorry to get all scientific on you all here, but scientifically speaking, it is the phenomenon that an object in motion tends to remain in motion. Object not in motion remains not in motion until or unless acted upon by an outside force. I sound like a scientist here. I'm not even into science, and commonly these terms are known as momentum and stagnation. All right, so when things are moving in your favor and you keep them going, that's called momentum. When nothing's happening and you feel like you can't do anything, that's called stagnation. That's inertia. Most people live in a constant state of inertia. The problem with inertia, again, as I reiterated, is that when you allow the inertia of doing nothing to set in, you will get worse. You're not actually doing nothing. You're actually getting worse. You may feel like you're doing nothing, but by definition, you're getting worse because you're one day closer to death every day, no matter how old you are. So the reason people don't take initiative is because they don't have to. That's the short answer, long answer, and the short answer to your question.
I love this episode. I can tell you are such a phenomenal coach because you tell people what they don't want to hear, but they have to hear it in order to be able to uplevel their life. I do want to ask a question because this held me back for so long in my life. When you're working with your clients or audience and you're asking them to take bold action when fear or perfectionism holds them back, how do you do that? I feel like for me, perfectionism was so hard to get over, right? I had to look a certain way, I had to act a certain way, I had to say everything correctly. But in reality, that holds you back because no one's perfect. Everyone needs to show up as their authentic self and to be open and vulnerable. So I want to know how you encourage your clients to take those bold actions, even though fear or perfectionism might be holding them back.
Great question. So, Samantha, what I would have them do is we would deconstruct before we even get to whatever that bold action is. We're deconstructing where are we actually trying to get to, and where someone's trying to get to is usually far away from where they are, right? So where they don't quite know exactly how they're going to get there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a coach, right? They'd be doing it already. So they are talking about this is where we want to get to. We start deconstructing until we get to something that we can do now. And at some point in that, what we can do now is going to be some form of bold action. And it's usually a form of some type of wholesale change because a bold action is a wholesale change because a bold action for one person is not the same as a bold action for another person. So, for example, you say a man walks into a networking event, and for some men they walk up to two ladies who are together. He's by himself, and he just strikes up a conversation. For some men, that's normal. They've been doing it their whole lives. For other men, they would piss their pants even thinking about doing that because it's not part of their normal mode of behavior. So, bold action is relative. And I talk about to people three different types of change. There is tactical change, which is when you take the things that you're already doing and you just tweak them a little bit. For example, if it takes you 10 minutes to wash your face and brush your teeth in the morning, I say, let's see if we can get it done in 8 minutes. That's a tactical change. You are doing the same thing, you're just changing it a little bit. Then there's strategic change, which is when you're still trying to get to the same outcome, but you change your approach and how you're doing it. So if you have a 20-minute commute from home to your office, instead of taking this street, let's take these streets and maybe it will get there 5 minutes faster. So we're still getting to the same outcome, just taking a different strategy to get there. Then the third thing is wholesale change. Wholesale change is, you familiar with the rap artist Drake? Y'all have heard of him, right? Okay.
I met him.
So you met him. Okay, I never met him. I saw this guy who was like, y'all said this guy on social media, he's like the fake Drake. He's like a Drake impersonator. Have you seen this guy?
I
No.
don't think so. No.
He looks like Drake, but is not Drake. I saw that guy in Miami. It was like 4 in the morning. I was about to run, and he was standing like 5 feet away from me. And I'm looking at him. I'm like, that guy looks like Drake, but I don't think that's him. It was the fake. It was the fake Drake. But anyway, y'all should look it up on the internet. The fake Drake. So anyway, Drake in his songs, he talks about how he was an actor before he got into music, and he was an actor because he wanted to make money acting, but he felt like music gave him a better chance of making a bunch of money, so he switched over to music and he made a bunch of money. At least according to what he tells us. Wholesale change. Another example would be if you're not a rapper or an actor, is let's say you have a 20-minute commute to work and you don't like the commute. How about you just bring your office to your home? So now you have no commute. You just get out of bed, you walk into your office. That's wholesale change. Still getting the job done, but you're changing the entire approach. So to go back to your question, okay, so the bold action is usually some form of wholesale change. And to make the wholesale change, the first thing is you have to sell the person on why the wholesale change would even be necessary. And that's why we do the deconstruction in order for us to take this bold move, because again, for it to be a bold move is something that's outside of the normal purview of the individual. So for you to do something you normally would not do, and in my experience, Samantha and Alexa, the older a person is, the less likely they are to be willing to do this. If I talk to a 14-year-old, they'll pretty much do anything. You talk to someone who's 44, is a little bit harder because you have to sell them on doing something that they haven't done all this time. So I had to sell them on why the outcome past the action is worth it. Because just selling them on the action is not enough because they probably have thought of the action before and they said, no, I'm not doing it. But if you think in sales, we call it thinking past the sale. So it's kind of like if you're selling somebody a car, well, where's the first place you're going to drive your car? So we're just assuming you're going to buy it. Right. So when you start thinking about where you're going to drive the car, you're already selling subconsciously yourself on the concept that you're going to buy it. Right. You haven't even bought the car yet. So it's kind of a little subconscious trick that you would play on yourself or on someone else. What's the outcome of me doing this? So once I've sold them on the outcome, now, okay, in order for us to get that outcome, we got to do this thing here. So it's like, you ever see that TV show by this guy named Caesar Milan, who was a dog trainer? You ever heard of him? Okay,
Yeah.
so this guy, he would train dogs. So when people actually he trained people who had problems with their dogs. So they would call him like, my dog won't do this, or my dog keeps making this mistake. And Caesar would come in and say, well, people think I'm coming to train the dog, but I'm actually training the human because dogs just respond to humans. So he would come in and he called it flooding. So he would get the dog doing this thing, this thing, this thing, and the person doing these things where they got into a flow state where they weren't thinking anymore. And then he would have them do the thing that they were traumatized by. And then they would realize that they were doing it. And they would say, oh my God, it would be like a breakthrough moment for them. Now, similar to what kind of like Tony Robbins does sometimes at his events. So it's getting people into a certain mental flow state and then getting them to do the thing they thought they couldn't do. And they don't even realize that they're doing it until you point it out to them. So that's what I would do to get people to take a bold step. And the thing is, when you're expanding in that way, Samantha, once you take a step that 5 minutes ago you thought was bold, now it's normal because now you've done it. Because as soon as you do it, now it's normal to you. And now bold becomes something else. So the comfort zone is expanding. So the biggest challenge for a lot of people is they just mentally can't wrap their minds around doing certain things outside of their normal sphere of influence, so to speak. But if you can get them to understand why they need to do it and then they do it, now they're in a position where they could possibly grow.
That was a great answer. I love everything you said.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really great.
Hopefully.
To wrap this up, we're going to do a this or that challenge. It's essentially quick rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Discipline or motivation?
Discipline.
I think I already know this one. Early mornings or late nights?
Early morning.
Books or podcasts?
Ooh, books.
Confidence or consistency?
That's a tough one. I would say both, but if I had to pick one,
Ooh,
I'll
yeah.
go with consistency because that'll lead to confidence.
Love it. Okay. Mental reps or physical reps?
Mental reps.
Build slow and steady or scale fast and risky?
Depends on what I'm doing, but I would say scale fast and risky because you'll probably have less competition.
Love that. Mindset coach or business strategist?
Oh, business strategist because mindset's part of it.
And last one, legacy or lifestyle?
Oh, legacy.
Okay. Well, this has been such an amazing episode. And I know that you're giving our audience a free book called The Third Day, The Decision, What Separates the Pros from the Amateurs. So thank you so much. We'll definitely link that in the show notes. And then for anyone listening, if they want to talk to you, if they want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Oh, just go to workonyourgame.com. Workonyourgame.com. You can learn more about me. And I'm on all the social medias. So just look up my name. I'm pretty easy to find everywhere.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I know this is going to be an incredible episode, and so many people are going to share it.
Samantha, Alexa, I appreciate both of you for sharing your platform. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks so much.